Curtis,
Present. Present.
Gear,
Present.
Gilbert,
Present.
Graham,
Present.
Hightower,
Present.
Sharma,
Present.
Simmons,
Present.
Tedrick.
Present.
A quorum is established.
Okay, the first item of board business is the election of officers, executive committee, and board representatives, and the annual appointments by the chair. First, are there any nominations for chair of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Phil Gilbert for chairman of our board.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none, the nominations for chair are closed. Madam Secretary, proceed with a roll call vote for the election of chair of the board.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick.
Yes.
I declare that by majority of voting members present, I've been reelected chair of the board. I want to express my thanks and gratitude to my fellow board members for having the confidence in me to be chair of this board for another year.
Unanimously.
Nobody wants it.
Well, you know, I
Appreciate
get called. Now you're making me feel bad. But I do appreciate your confidence, and I know this past year, I think Misty pointed out to me, a year ago was the last time we were all together. Every board meeting since the election of officers last year has been remotely. And I miss you guys. So hopefully with everybody getting the vaccination and things getting better, we can get together again for in-person meetings. And having said that, I need to also point out for the record that the governor extended his executive order. Is that correct, Luke? He extended his executive order so we could have this meeting by Zoom.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. The next we need to elect the vice chair and the secretary. And I nominate Ed Hightower as vice chairman.
I
And,
second that.
Pardon?
I said I will second that motion.
Well, I'm not finished. I'm not finished with my motion.
Oh.
John.
All right.
And Roger Tedrick is secretary.
Well, now you got me thinking. I'll still second.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
The nominations, any other nominations for vice chair and secretary? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. Madam Secretary, please proceed to a roll call vote for the election of vice chair and secretary with the following candidates: Ed Hightower as vice chair and Roger Tedrick as secretary.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick.
Yes.
I declare that by majority of voting members present, Ed Hightower has been elected vice chair and Roger Tedrick has been elected secretary. Next, we need to elect members of the executive committee. And I nominate John Simmons and Roger Tedrick to serve as members of the executive committee of the Board of Trustees. Are there
I
any other
second.
nominations?
I
Hearing none,
second.
the nominations are closed. Madam Secretary, please proceed with a roll call vote for the election of the members of the executive committee with the following candidates: John Simmons and Roger Tedrick as members of the executive committee.
And was that Subhash Sharma who seconded?
Yes, Mr.
Okay. Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick.
Yes.
I declare that by majority of the voting members, John Simmons and Roger Tedrick have been elected as members of the Executive Committee. As a requirement of the State University's Civil Service Act, our board elects a representative to serve on the State University's Civil Service System Merit Board. Are there any nominations? And I will nominate John Simmons. Are there any other nominations?
Second that.
Nominations are closed, and Madam Secretary, please proceed with a roll call vote. Oh, is there a second to my nomination of?
Roger Ted.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please proceed with a roll call vote for John Simmons to be elected as Civil Service Representative.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
yes,
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick,
Yes.
I declare that John Simmons has been elected by a majority of the voting members present to serve as our representative on the State University Civil Service Merit Board. The appointments by the chair to the Board of Trustees, the annual appointments are going to be as follows. The Academic Matters Committee, the members will be Dr. Ed Hightower as chair, Stephen Gear and Trustee and also Trustee Gear and Trustee Sharma as members. On their Architectural and Design Committee, John Simmons will be chair. Ed Curtis, Jacob Graham, and Roger Tedrick are the members, other members. Of the Audit Committee, Ed Curtis will be chair, Stephen Gear will be a member, and I am also a member. The Finance Committee will be Roger Tedrick chair, Ed Curtis, Jacob Graham, and Shabash Sharma. The Board of Directors of Southern Illinois University Foundation, the members will be Shabash Sharman and Roger Tedrick, the alternate. On the Board of Directors of Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, Dr. Ed Hightower will be the member, and we're going to wait for another appointment from the governor, which may be hopefully a Metro East person will be the alternate. The Joint Trustees Committee for Springfield Medical Education Program, the members will be John Simmons, and I will be the alternate. On the Board of Directors Association of Alumni, Former Students and Friends of Southern Illinois University Incorporated, the member will be Shabash Sharma, and I will be the alternate. And the Board of Directors, Alumni Association of Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, Ed Hightower will be the member, and that may be substituted when we get a new trustee, and if so, then Ed Hightower will become the alternate. And the SIU Healthcare Board of Directors, the member will be John Simmons. That concludes the appointment segment of the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the tuition and fees discussion. President Mahoney, will you introduce this item?
Yes, well, Chair Gilbert, I wanted to take this opportunity to present from both campuses where they are right now on suggesting tuition and fee increases for fall of 2021. Again, we're not voting on this today. We will vote on this at the April meeting. So this is just a presentation of what we are suggesting at this point, and also an opportunity really for the board to give us any feedback that you may have about what proposals may come forward. So I'll turn it first over to Chancellor Lane.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and President Mahoney. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's good to see everyone, and happy New Year. I know we're all back. The Carbondale campus is committed to affordability and access and has not raised the tuition since fall of 2018. The mandatory fees have been the same since fall of 2016. Unless something drastically changes, we'll not be recommending any tuition and fee increases for the upcoming fiscal year. A couple of reasons here: recognizing the economic challenges that our students and families are facing as a result of the pandemic has really strengthened our resolve to hold the line on the cost of attendance. Having said that, though, we must stay focused on growing our enrollment and continuing to look for ways to operate even more efficiently. So that's going to be our key focus going forward, is how much more efficient can we become. It's early, but we're very excited about our percentages of increase for our incoming fall 2021 freshman class. We're also excited, very excited about the Saluki commitment. To give you an idea, to date, 221 newly admitted freshmen and 53 new transfer students are eligible for the Saluki commitment. We expect that number to increase. The more we market and get that out, get that message out, we think that's going to increase even more. We believe this will really help us reduce the amount of tuition waivers that we've granted to the undergraduate students. And so we're really going to tackle that category. I know it's one that's pretty high right now, but I think we have some real good strategies for decreasing that. If we can do that, it will put a little bit more back in the income fund in some areas where we need it to be. I really want to applaud all of our faculty, our A&P and civil staff members, as well as our deans, our vice chancellors. They were digging really deep for us back in the fall, the beginning of the fall semester, into their existing budgets to really help us out. As you know, we enacted a 6% budget cut during this fiscal year. We continue to look for even more ways to keep costs down, manage discretionary spending, and enhance those revenues. And so we're laser focused on really doing that across the university to make sure we can get to be in a much stronger position. 7 months, speaking of position, 7 months into the fiscal year, our tuition revenues are tracking slightly higher than the budgeted amount, and expenses are tracking slightly lower, which is a good sign for us. We expect to end the year with a balanced general operating budget. To give you an idea, we've collected now $63.7 million of the $70 million tuition budget as of January 31st. That's 91%. We've spent $105 million of the $167 million. It comes out to about 63%, and that's as of January 31st. So feeling pretty good about that. As I mentioned earlier, our current planning does not include a tuition increase for the next academic year. However, we did work through some requested scenarios from the Governor's Office of Management and Budget. And I'll have Judy just briefly describe some of the factors that we did consider as we continue to plan for next year. So Judy?
Thank you, Chancellor, and good morning, Board and President Mahoney. The Governor's Office back in the fall, November, asked us to prepare a couple of FY22 budget scenarios. This was a request made of all the Illinois higher ed publics, and we did so. They wanted us to look at appropriation cuts for next year of 5% and 10% of this year's appropriation. So for the Carbondale campus, a 5% cut in our appropriation is about $4.8 million. If we were to try to cut our budget to meet that, it would be another 2.9% cut from the expense budget to stay in balance. Another option would be to look at a tuition increase, which would be about a 15% tuition increase, which clearly is not realistic and not going to be something that we seriously ever consider. A 10% reduction doubles that. We'd be looking to find $9.6 million or a 5.8% expense cut, which would be another cut similar to what we just did this year, or a tuition increase of 30%. Clearly, we cannot propose tuition increases that would fill the gap that could come from reduced appropriations. Another scenario we looked at more recently was the budget developed by the Illinois Board of Higher Education. They have proposed an average 2% increase in appropriated funding for all of the Illinois publics, which for us would be just under $2 million. We would likely use that new funding for personal services and other campus priorities. Lastly, and probably most realistically, we're working with a flat budget with appropriated funding and enrollment comparable to this year's and no tuition increase. And we would expect our operations to look similar to this year. At the same time, we reviewed our mandatory fees. And as the Chancellor mentioned, we are not planning to request an increase in the general student fee at this time. That will be the 6th year without an increase. Our areas that are fee dependent are holding the line on costs, looking for efficiencies, and our belief that our enrollment is stabilizing has tremendously assisted them with their planning. We already brought to you in December an increase in the optional refundable health insurance fee for next year. So we already have that settled. I do want to mention that our School of Law is considering the possibility of a new academic support fee that would primarily be used in support of preparation for the bar exam. The discussions are currently underway with the dean, the law students and others on that. And I just wanted to tell you that that is on the horizon potentially. The other thing I need to mention today is housing, room and board. We are not planning to request an increase in room and board rates for university housing. That will be the 4th year with no increase. They had, for 3 years, they have offered housing scholarships of about $2.5 million a year. That will not be in place next fall, which should provide them sufficient financial relief to not need to request any cost increases. I'm going now to turn to my colleague in Springfield, John Horvat, who's going to discuss tuition and fees at our School of Medicine. John?
Thanks, Judy. The School of Medicine is proposing for consideration a 2% tuition increase for both the MD and physician assistant professional degree programs. Tuition for the graduate programs and the new Doctor of Medical Science degree approved by this board earlier this academic year will remain unchanged. Tuition and fees for the first 2 semesters for community-based medical schools in the central region range from $44,200 to $32,300. The School of Medicine's proposed tuition would rank us below the average of the 7 medical schools in this category. SIU's physician assistant program continues to have a strategic advantage with the lowest cost of degree for the 6 PA programs in our region. The tuition increase for these 2 programs will generate approximately $350,000 in additional revenue. In addition, we're proposing a $25 per semester increase in the student activity fee for 2nd to 4th year medical students. This fee has support from the School of Medicine Student Assembly and will help support the marginalized student network. As the board is aware, the School of Medicine has had a unique financial challenges since the beginning of the global pandemic and has made some difficult decisions to help close our budget gap. Tuition is just one, but a very important piece of the School of Medicine's overall budget. And we're asking for this tuition adjustment as part of an overall strategy to be able to present this board with a balanced budget for fiscal year 22. Thank you.
Are there any questions of Dr. Lane or Judy or John? John, I have one question. How does the tuition at the medical school compare with other medical schools around the country?
As I mentioned, for community-based medical schools, it kind of puts us right in the middle. We're a little bit below the average. And the folks that we compared ourselves to included Michigan State University, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wright State in Ohio, Northeast Ohio, and Central Michigan, who all have community-based medical schools.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for President Mahoney or Chancellor Lane, and the same question will follow for SIUE Chancellor Pembroke. How are we planning to market and tell this good story of what you just reported to us as a means of communicating with continual prospective students, the media, and so on, that these are the good things that we're doing here as far as fees and all?
I can answer that, President Mahoney. Dr. Hightower, one of the things that we're going to employ this spring down the stretch, you notice I mentioned our fall class looks pretty good,
Right.
but we have to yield that class. We've got to make sure that between now and August that we're really connected to those students that have been admitted. So we're standing up some yield events that are happening between now and August. These events will coincide with our alums in very highly populated areas where we have students that have been admitted, to really go over the finances of coming to SIUC and really highlighting those students who would be eligible for the Saluki commitment or the Saluki transfer commitment. So a lot of efforts happening between now and then to really market, get the word out, and then make contact with those students so they, and their parents or grandparents, so they know exactly what we have to offer. What we are finding sometimes when we talk casually, that people still don't know. So we've got some work to do to really
Exactly.
push it out there.
And a final question, I should have attached this question to it. Do we have targeted states and areas that we're really focusing on, Chancellor Lane?
Yeah, we do. We're targeting it. It's kind of a core and then out to an external group, but we're targeting our local region, our local community and region really first. And then we're pushing that outside into areas that we've typically received a lot of students, whether it's in the Chicago area, or whether it's over in Metro East or St. Louis. So we've established a lot of partnerships with these independent school districts to really try and help those pipelines. Out of state, obviously targeting whether it's the states on each side of us or up or below us. And so we're really targeted and trying to make sure that we have students coming to us from those places as well, knowing that, you know, there's not terribly a lot of students here in the state of Illinois that everybody's trying to get. So we are looking out of state as well.
Okay.
And I'll just follow up real quickly. I think that from a recruiting standpoint, there's really two groups. The larger group is the group we already know. They're the ones who've applied already. And so what Chancellor Lane, I think, was really talking about is reaching out in those individual sessions and trying to get a hold of them and saying either, hey, you qualify for the Saluki commitment, or here's about what we think it will cost for you, given, again, the not increasing tuition and fees. And that really is critical, because this is really the period of time where a lot of those students are making those decisions. There's also a group that hasn't applied yet. And so that's a smaller group, but they still exist. And a lot of what we've been doing is working with a lot of guidance counselors and school districts and trying to get the word out through them to encourage students at those schools to apply. So kind of using that as a path. Again, the Saluki commitment and Cougar commitment have really been helpful. I think getting some of those students to apply, but also getting a message out on, you know, how affordable it will be to come to SIUC or SIUE. This is a good time, because those who haven't made a decision about where to apply may now consider applying, even if it's a little bit later.
Excellent. Excellent. Well done. Well done.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go back to ask John a question. I just, for clarification, he was talking about 2% for the MD program increase. Then he talked about our physician's assistant program that has been very well received. But what is that? Is the PA system, do they get a 2% increase also? I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, we were proposing a 2% for both the MD program and the physician assistant professional program, but not for the Doctor of Medical Science degree in the PA. It's part of the PA program.
Okay, thank you.
Which is more of an academic degree.
And if I remember correctly, John, you'd said that still keeps us at the bottom pretty much of the area of physician assistant programs as far as tuition goes.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
What's our enrollment in that program?
It's I'll answer that. But we have 40 a year for 2 years in the undergrad part, well, the main program, so 80 total. And then the Doctor of Medical Science, we don't know. We've actually got acceptances from a few students already. So as I mentioned before, we're anticipating 40, maybe even up to 100 a year for that one.
Oh, good.
Okay, any other questions? I do have one other question, and again, this is for the SIU and also probably for Edwardsville when Chancellor Pembroke. I assume because high schools we can't go into high schools with with targeting, actually going there and talking to students, that most of this recruitment efforts are being done by social media.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've been able to actually get inside of some of those high schools in a virtual way, to your point. So we've been able to have discussions with their seniors and their rising seniors, so their juniors. And so that's been pretty helpful. We worked in with the superintendents and with the high school counselors because they have goals and benchmarks too. So, you know, they want us there because they still have to, despite the pandemic, they still have classes of students that need to move on. So we've been pretty fortunate, and it's starting to open up a little bit now here over the last few weeks. We're starting to get some schools that are really wanting us to come meet with them in person. So that is changing a little bit. We're excited about that.
And how about our junior college outreach?
Junior college the same way. We have met with all of our community college leaders in the area, Ren Lake, Shawnee, Logan, and then even outside of our region, we've talked a lot with them about our Saluki Step Ahead program, but those have gone really well. That's an area that we've got to do a little bit better in. Our transfer numbers are not where we want them to be, but just talking about the Saluki transfer commitment, I think is going to help us down the stretch, but working on them too.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, well, actually two things. One is just to compliment Chancellor Lane and his staff and all they've done actually this year to reduce costs, which was critical to putting us in a better financial position on the Carbondale campus, but also being in a position where we can make this kind of recommendation. Likewise with the School of Medicine, as John indicated, they've had to make some really difficult decisions. Unfortunately, COVID hit them probably harder than any other part of the system. And they really adjusted quite well. And so the tuition increase, the small tuition increase, is really only one of many things they've done to keep themselves in a very strong financial position. So, congratulations to both.
Yeah, I'd like to say kudos to Chancellor Lane and to Dean Cruz for your work in that. This isn't the time for big increases, and I'm proud of your work.
I have a quick question for John. When was the last time tuition was increased for medical students and PA program?
I believe last year we also did a 2% adjustment for the MD program and the PA program.
So is it every year 2% or just?
I'm not sure what it was the year before that. I think it, Dean Cruz, do you have a recollection of what we did 2 years ago?
I don't know. We've done 1 or 2%, and I know there's 1 year we skipped. So it's been pretty consistent, really. Yeah.
All right, Chancellor Pembroke, you're up next.
Thank you, President Mahoney. Like you've just heard, my goal today is not to provide a specific recommendation, but just to give you information regarding tuition and fees. We think that we'll know more about the Illinois budget and the higher education relief packages from Washington, D.C. by the meeting on April 29. So today is basically about information. You should have received something entitled Tuition and Fee Rate Comparisons Academic Year 2020-21. And I want to reference some things in that document. It compares our costs to other institutions. As you know, Illinois has 12 public higher education institutions. 6 of those are doctoral, 6 of those are master's large regional institutions. For the doctoral institutions, of which SIU is one of 6, the range for tuition and fees is from $12,219 per year to $16,862 per year. SIUE is at $12,219, so we're at the bottom of that range. The University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign is at $16,862. They're at the top of that range. If you look at the other 6 publics, the Carnegie Master's institutions, their costs range from $12,356 to $15,093. So when you put those 12 institutions together, SIUE is the lowest tuition and fee price point, not only for the doctoral institutions, but also for all of the institutions, including the masters. Last year, we had a consulting firm come in to do a focus groups with potential students and parents regarding our price point. And they came to the conclusion that we could raise tuition without affecting enrollment. As you will recall, a year ago, this board met, the last time we met in person, and the decision was to keep tuition and fees flat. But we do think that there is room for us to adjust our price point if we need to go that direction. On that chart that I mentioned, there are also institutions from St. Louis that are included on that. Between 10 and 15% of SIUE students are from the St. Louis MSA. So the price comparisons in Missouri are also important to us. A lot of those institutions are private institutions, so they are higher as you would expect. Washington University is at 57,000, SLU is at 47,000, Webster's at 29, Maryville's at 25, and Lindenwood is at 18. If you look at the two publics that we compete with most often, UMSL is at 11 and Mizzou is at 10.6. So we're competitive, but slightly higher than them. I would note that they both receive significantly higher state appropriations per FTE. So that's our comparative price point. As Judy mentioned, there are 4 scenarios that we are thinking about that have been proposed, requested either by the state of Illinois or Ibhe. The first one is called the maintenance budget. For us, a maintenance budget would total about 5.8 million in additional costs for 21-22. About 1.8 of that 5.8 would be traditional things relating to cost of living, such as electricity, fuel, even paper supplies. We have about 17 unions. We have agreements with most of those unions that are already signed for 2021-22. That would result, those salary increases would be about 1.95 million. And then the non-represented, the non-union union individuals, we would be thinking about trying to adjust salaries to cover this year, which we have not adjusted, and next year. So that portion would be about 2.1 million. So our maintenance budget would be about a $5.8 million increase. The 2% appropriation increase that Judy mentioned, Ibhe had requested, for us, that would generate between 1.5 and $2 million in additional revenue. That would leave us 4.3 million short of the $5.8 million maintenance budget, if you would. So I wanted to share 2 things just for you to think about. For every 1% tuition increase at SIUE, that generates about $230,000. That seems like a small number as it relates to that, but I would remind the trustees that when we do a tuition increase, it only applies to the incoming class. The other individuals have a locked-in tuition rate. So if we think about 1% tuition generating about $250,000, it would take 4% tuition increase to generate $1 million. We're not recommending that at the moment, but I just wanted to put that number out there. Another number for you to reflect on is that the average salary at SIUE is between $55,000 and $60,000 across faculty and staff. So again, if you think about making adjustments, it would take 17 positions roughly to equate to $1 million. The last 2 scenarios, the 5% cut for us, that would be about a $2.94 million reduction. If you think about that and the inflationary costs, that would be an $8 to $9 million gap we would have to address. If we look at the 10% cut, that would be a $5.9 million decrease. So that would leave with the inflationary costs about $11 to $12 million gap. So there's some numbers that I hope are helpful. Relating to fees, we're not making a proposal at this time, but I wanted to just mention we have an all-encompassing fee which addresses all of those things under one umbrella, things such as facilities, fitness center, textbook services, technology support, etc. There were 2 major things that came out of student conversations relating to fees. The students annually embrace that conversation in the fall, And so there were two things that they wanted me to report, and I'm happy to do that. First of all, that they support an increase in fees so that we can continue excellence in what we provide. There were two caveats that relate to that. One is that the students wanted the fee to address healthcare such that they do not have to do copays. So they do not want to have a fee increase and to have an individual student copay. So that's one part of what I'm going to tell you about in a minute. The other part is that they felt that their portion of the athletic budget, which is the highest in the OVC, our student fees support about 53% of the athletic budget, that they would not like to see that portion of the student fee increase. So when you think about those two factors and what they would like to see happen, they actually proposed to us a 2.6% fee increase for 21-22. That was endorsed by student government and by our primary budget advisory group called UPBC at SIUE. If we did that, that would move our fee rate from $103.20, $103.20 to $105.90 per credit, or about $80 more per year for a undergraduate student taking 30 credit hours. So that's where we stand on the fee situation. I hope that gives you something to think about. Last but not least, housing and dining. We think it is too early to make a specific suggestion about where we might be. We are looking at the federal stimulus dollars, particularly the CARES 3 package that is currently being discussed. We are looking at debt restructuring pertaining to housing. A number that is kind of amazing to me is that 50% of our housing expenses, or the housing budget, if you would, relates to the bond payment. So we're looking at seeing if we can adjust that. We also aren't sure at this point of what we will project for occupancy in fall 21, spring 22. So I would summarize that section just by saying that initial conversations have been in the 3 to 5% range. There is a lot of demand for what is called suite living, SUITE, suite living at SIUE. And we think that we could sustain as much as a 5% increase there. Overall, in areas such as food, we're looking at something in the 3% area, but we're going to wait until we get to April to make a specific recommendation. Let me just answer the two or three questions that were asked, and then I'll open the floor. Trustee Hightower asked about marketing. We went out immediately with when the Cougar commitment was approved, and we sent out several press releases on that. We have something called a preview on our campus when prospective students and parents visit. We always mention Cougar commitment as part of that. When people send in applications and we commit with our written materials, we also outline it there. Charter high school students in East St. Louis, we are making sure that they are up to speed on the Cougar commitment. And I get asked to respond to things on St. Louis television and radio, and I always mention the Cougar commitment as part of that. Our target areas, the question was, where do we seem to be trying to expand? Two major metropolitan markets that we are hitting beyond St. Louis, obviously. Those markets are Chicago and Kansas City. In a normal year, we bring in high school advisors from those cities, and we have them visit our campus. We pick up the costs for that so that they can come and get a better idea of what SIUE is and have conversations, see our programs, see our facilities, et cetera. Regarding community colleges and virtual visits, let me start with high schools. I checked 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had done about 150 virtual visits to high schools who wanted us to do that. And as it relates to community colleges, we have increased the amount of scholarships that we are offering to transfers. To be honest, 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't think much. We didn't have much scholarship support in that area. That's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for a lot of areas. And so we have increased scholarship support for transfer students. So with that, I'll pause and see if there are any other questions.
Any questions of Chancellor Pembroke?
Mr. Chair, I just want to again stress to President Mahoney, to chancellors that excellent report. But from the board's point of view, we want to be crystal clear, and I think Mr. Chair, you and other trustees will attest. This board is not in any way, shape, or form anticipating any type of pay increase at this time. Tuition increase at this time. Is that clear, Mr. Chair?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question for Chancellor Pembroke.
Go ahead.
Chancellor, you reported UMSL fees are 0 and Columbia, University of Missouri, Columbia fees are 1,393. Are these accurate numbers or typos?
I'm sorry. Could you ask your question again?
Yeah, the University of Missouri, St. Louis, and Columbia fees, are these accurate numbers or typos?
Are they accurate numbers or are they what?
Typos are. Is that correct that their fees are 0?
For Lindenwood University, we have 0. For UMSL, we have 0. I can check on that to see if that's because we don't have information or whether they roll that into their tuition.
And also for University of Missouri, Columbia, it is only 1,300. And I wonder why these two universities, their fees are so low compared to the universities in Illinois.
Well, so one of the things that I will say is that I mentioned the state support. Those two institutions average between $8,000 and $9,000 per FTE in state support. And that number is much lower for the state of Illinois.
So do you happen to have the actual data, the state support for Missouri universities?
I have the FTE for the Missouri institutions, yes?
Yes, I would like to see that.
Okay.
You can email me anytime.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Chancellor Pembroke?
I guess just one question for Dr. Hightower. You talked about no tuition increase. Wasn't sure you were talking about the fee increases that Chancellor Pembroke discussed as well.
Well, our position, this is something that, the worst thing that could happen right now is that we start even pushing the notion that we're going to push any type of increase right now. So that's my concern right now.
I agree.
Yeah,
with
and
Dr.
I'll just
Hightower.
piggyback on
Except
that.
the medical school, but for both the campuses, Edwardsville and Carbondale, I'll be reluctant to approve any tuition and fees for this year especially.
Yeah, I just want to echo something that I had pounded in my head growing up, which was just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's right.
Yeah.
You remember
Can I add a
back
comment, please?
Remember back in 2008 when we had the economic meltdown, this board froze tuition and fees for a number of years too. We thought it was the right thing to do. And I agree that it's the right thing to do now too.
Trustee Curtis, you have something you want to
Just a
say?
quick comment. There's more information to come, in terms of state support or lack of state support, et cetera. And I know we're just talking today. So I'm really going to withhold my judgment until our leadership comes back and makes a final recommendation. So I'm still open-minded.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the rural health update and the community transformation efforts. President Mahoney, will you introduce this item?
Yeah, I've asked Vice President Kupchak to give us an update on two things that really have been working on over the last couple months. I think both are exciting, but I wanted to at least inform the board of where we are in developing both of these initiatives, which are some ways separate, but actually I think in some ways will overlap as well. So Vice President Kupchak.
Thank you, President Mahoney, and Happy New Year, everyone. It's good to see everyone, if not in person, at least on Zoom. So I'd like to update you on the two initiatives that are very exciting. The first is bringing the strengths of the system together in the area of rural health, and the second is bringing the system strengths together in creating an Office of Community Transformation to help underserved communities in our footprint. The first area I'll talk about is what we call an Institute for Rural Health. Now, there was a task force that was appointed last summer and fall that Dean Cruz chaired that provided an excellent report. And subsequent to that report, a committee was formed to look at the feasibility of creating an Institute for Rural Health at the system level. And this Institute for Rural Health would look at a coordinated area of rural health services, research, and non-degree based education, so as not to raise any accreditation issues for Central and Southern Illinois. Also, we looked at how can rural health, public health strengths from each campus be synergized through this potential institute, and what might the structure of the institute be. So the recommendations that we received heavily weighed on what the original task force sent to us. But drawing on those recommendations, it was suggested that an Institute for Rural Health be formed, and we applied to the Illinois Board of Higher Education for temporary institute status. The recommendation was to have a director of the Institute for Rural Health at the system level, to appoint a small rural health leadership council with one or two representatives from each campus to function as an advisory council to the director and to oversee the development of the institute as well as integrated rural health programs for the system. There was also a recommendation to appoint a rural advisory council made up of members both from SIU system as well as a community to provide guidance regarding community needs, collaborations, and partnerships. The Institute for Rural Health Committee thought that the Institute should focus on these areas: data analytics, research and technology, including broadband capability and telehealth, equity for both health and well-being, leadership and policy development, sustainable programs, either for long-standing Institute of Rural Health programs or for project management that leads to handoffs to community-based groups, collaborative internal and external partnerships, development of multilateral partnerships involving private, academic, governmental, and community entities. And the last recommendation was to hire office personnel to perform functions of grant writing, research, project management, and administrative assistance, which would allow the Institute for Rural Health to become effective. So that was the recommendation from the Institute of Rural Health Committee, and that came in very quickly. I was talking with Trustee Tedrick and the president. It came in a month and a half, so lightning academic speed. We also had, so that was about the Institute of Rural Health. I'll go to the Office of Community Transformation now. So there was a working group that was set up in November 2020, and we received the recommendations this January, again, very quickly. And that working group looked at what areas of community development and transformation can the system impact. How can we match the resources on each campus to the areas that we can impact? And what structure would this office have? Now, as President Mahoney said, you'll see some overlap between the two reports. So the recommendation of the working group were to establish a central office of community transformation to coordinate system-wide transformation activities and communicate with community representatives. The office should be staffed with a director and report to the office of the president. There was a recommendation to appoint one community transformation liaison at each system campus that can help identify resources on each campus needed for intercampus community revitalization teams. A really exciting recommendation was to center intercampus efforts around the 4-pillar agenda to rid Illinois of systemic racism, as proposed by the Illinois Black Caucus. So in doing so, it aligns all system campus missions with community needs. The 4 pillars include criminal justice reform, violence reduction, and police accountability. 2, education, workforce development. 3, economic access, opportunity, and equity. And 4, healthcare and human services. So there's some work ongoing to develop teams in these areas as well. These pillars represent the needs of most, if not all, underserved communities in Illinois. Thus, the pillars provide an organizing framework for activities that reflect both state-level priorities as well as community-level needs. There was also a recommendation very similar to the Institute for Rural Health to hire grant writing, project management, and administrative staff as shared resources that could help not only this office, but also the Institute of Rural Health, but also other community-facing endeavors, such as the new Office of Anti-Racism, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And finally, the working group recommended creating a system-wide community advisory council that will aid the community-based relationships and advise the director of the Office of Community Transformation. Now, we have active discussions underway about how these 2 endeavors can move forward and how we can implement the recommendations, and also thinking about the overlap. And we expect to have some more concrete information to the Board of Trustees by the meeting in April. So that is my report on the 2 endeavors. President Mahoney, would you like me to talk also about the Irma C. Hayes Center right now?
Yeah, you can do that as well, yeah.
Very quickly, just as the Southern Illinois University Edwardsville campus is working with Brooklyn, Madison, and Venice, it was mentioned at a previous board meeting, the SIUC campus is working with the Irma C. Hayes Center. And a very quick report is a committee has been formed. Dr. Mark Morris is on the board of the Irma C. Hayes Center. And there's a committee that's been formed at SIUC that represents several different areas of strength. Chancellor Lane has toured the center with several individuals. A needs assessment survey is being explored with the residents of the neighborhood in collaboration with the Applied Research Consultants Group at Carbondale. The architecture school visited the center and looked at the building structure. There were students involved as well. There's also efforts to look at loan applications for the center and working with the Boys and Girls Club of Southern Illinois. And also they're looking at how Carbondale is looking at how the center can be involved in a broadband grant at the state level. So there's a lot of activities that are going on at the Irma C. Hayes Center. So that's a very quick report, and I would like to open it up for questions, comments.
Any questions for Dr.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, starting with timelines. I know in Dean Cruz's report, it talks about immediate and intermediate timelines, and the immediate was the system office, and I guess creating a director that reports to the system office for this IRHC. What could you be a little more specific? And President Mahoney, that may be directed to you. What are we talking about something we're going to try to get done within a year or 6 months, or what's the feeling on that?
I'm hoping, if all goes well, I'm hoping that we'll have some sense of what the structure will look like by the April meeting, so that by the April meeting we'll have identified a director and starting the process of building both of those, both the Institute for Rural Health and the Office for Community Transformation. So I'm somewhat optimistic that by April, we'll kind of start to have the structure in place and we can present that more formally then. So,
Okay,
not,
well,
not a 6 months or a year, I'm actually thinking a month and a half, so.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's moving very quickly, but one other question regarding that, and I guess this is for Dean Cruz. You know, the mission of the Institute for Rural Health, of course, is improving the health of our rural constituencies. But talk about the program growth. Where do you see this collaborative initiative growing enrollment on our campuses and in what areas?
Okay. Yeah, I will address that. You know, the first thing I want to say is that we were very clear about what our definition of rural was, and I'll just repeat that so everybody gets it. So rural includes what the School of Medicine is called the area of accountability, and I think the system has embraced that to some degree. So southern, southwestern Illinois, 66 to 80 counties, which includes the small urban areas, the small cities, the towns, the people, the farms, everything that's in that environment. That's why it overlaps so much with community transformation. The other thing I'll say is that the task force and the committee left whoever the director is coming in with a very detailed analysis of all of the things that Dr. Gupta just talked about. So there's a wealth of things that will be helpful, including a system inventory of things related to public health, which is not complete, but it's pretty impressive. Now, I'll also say the task force and the committee, the gatherings of those has brought the system together in and of itself. So that simple step has really helped us to move forward. Now, the places that you might see the gains in enrollment are the specific areas that were mentioned: data analytics, rural research, telehealth, broadband, things related to equity. Another one really important, leadership and policy development. And, you know, all of those things have elements on almost any one of the three campuses that could be ripe for significant growth and expansion, you know, with the collaborations, with the synergy, and then, you know, with individual programs too. So we think that there's lots and lots of potential for growth everywhere in the system when we put this together.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. And you, if you could be a little more specific, let me just take two areas and how you encompass them in this. Our pharmacy school on the Edwardsville campus, mental health programs on the Carbondale campus.
So one thing that actually wasn't mentioned yet, amazingly enough, but you find, you know, all of this report is like a 59-page document, you know, but what you see laced throughout that is interprofessional collaboration, interprofessional healthcare. And so we've had, you know, representatives from every discipline on these committees. Again, we've gotten to know each other better, and we fully embrace the idea that all of those things will be important components. So that has not been left out of the report. On the other hand, it has been an astounding emphasis of the report. Wouldn't you agree with that, Girish?
Yeah, I do agree. And Trustee Tedrick, I agree with what Dr. Cruz said. Just bringing, the teams together for the Institute of Rural Health, as well as the Office of Community Transformation, has already spurred some grassroots efforts. You know, we're getting, for example, people in the School of Architecture and similar disciplines in Edwardsville, the School of Medicine, School of Pharmacy, School of Dental Medicine, they're all coming together and seeing, you know, how we can help each other come to the table and create, transformative endeavors, both in rural health as well as community transformation. There's a lot of overlap. So I think that's an excellent observation that Dr. Cruz made. So it's very exciting.
I would agree, and I think this board would agree with you that it's exciting. It's some real opportunity for us. Good work.
And let me just add as well, on the community transformation initiative, and certainly Roger, we've been involved with the rural initiative from day one. But the community transformation initiative I'm excited about it because it's helping so many underserved representatives. it's going to just absolutely cause economic development to occur in those much needed areas of the SIU system umbrella. Let me just give you a case in point of how this has come about just in recent days. Thanks to the work of Grish pulling the group together, Dr. Cox from SIUE has been trying to work with various areas here on grant writing. Well, to get the grants for economic development in these areas, you have to have, as we know, an economic plan. Well, with that, she was able to tap into, as Grace started to say, the architectural department on the Carbondale campus. And with that, they are working collaboratively to help these individuals develop an economic development plan. So, you know, it's really coming together, and it's an exciting opportunity for us to really put a footprint in these communities that are in dire need of help in a lot of different ways. So it's really coming along. And again, I go back and I think President Mahoney, the chancellors, Pembroke and Lane, for getting involved, and certainly Grace, thank you for your leadership and keeping the momentum going and making this all come together.
Okay, any other questions of?
Just one other comment. I'd like to thank Grace and Dean Cruz and President Mahoney for bringing this to the board today and letting us discuss this. It's exciting.
All right. Missy, see anybody else that wants?
I saw John Simmons had his hand up, but
That was a
are you
clap.
okay now? Okay.
Yeah, it looks very much like the hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, they're very,
okay.
very
You got your
similar.
Anyway, I thank you for that report, Garish. I think that both the rural health and the community transformation is setting our footprint all over Southern Illinois. If anything that has exposed the need for a rural health initiative, it's been this pandemic. And just look at the issues and the problems they're having getting some of these vaccination shots to these rural areas and underrepresented areas. And I think we're on the right track. We're going to be helping people all throughout Southern Illinois, if not the entire state. But I think this is one of the missions we have with this university. As we educate the leaders for tomorrow. Okay, is there anything else with respect to this item? If not, we will next move to close the meeting to go into executive session. I move to close the meeting to the public for the purpose of considering pending, probable, or imminent court proceedings against or on behalf of the board, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, and review of executive session minutes. The relevant sections of the Open Meetings Act statute that allow for the closed session are 5 ILCS 120/2, C, 1, 11, and 21. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Whittington, please call the roll.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick.
Yes.
Okay, we are now going to go into executive session. Misty, we go to the president's office and then they have the number to call in.
That's right.
Okay.
And my question is, should we estimate, I see the Academic Matters Committee folks
Yeah,
have joined.
Luke probably can give you the best estimate. I don't have any.
Luke, give us an estimate.
Yeah, honestly, probably 5-10 minutes max. It'll be pretty short today.
11:15,
Okay, well,
But let's say 11:20.
11:20, okay.
Okay.
So Tim and Liz, thanks for being here. You heard they'd be back at 11:20, so we'll start at 11:20. Thank you. Thanks, Eric, and I don't see Ian. Yeah, I see Ian. Ian, and then Colin, Lexia, is that how you say your name? Lexi, and then Marcus. We'll begin 11:30. Thank you for being here.
session now.
Oh, Carol, we're ready to go when you are. Thank you.
Okay, we are back in open session and will now recess and reconvene at the conclusion of the board's committee meetings. The next meeting is the Academic Matters Committee meeting. Dr. Hightower, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The meeting of the Academic Matters Committee is now in session. Announcement, Dr. Gupchuk, are there any announcements?
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. I have a few announcements. First, I would like to commend our faculty, staff, and students for the resilience that they've shown during the COVID pandemic. We hope things will get better during 2021. I'm optimistic. A few IBHE updates. The Illinois Board of Higher Education has been working on Senate Joint Resolution 41. In 2019-2020, the IBHE and the Illinois Community College Board convened a joint advisory council for the purposes of reviewing and scaling effective developmental education practices. The goal is to support student academic success in entry-level credit-bearing college coursework, as well as retention and degree completion. SIUC Provost Mira Kamaraju serves on the advisory committee. The Illinois Articulation Initiative has extended acceptance of online lab and communications courses until the end of the year due to COVID restrictions. IBHE has convened a committee to develop the common application procedures for all Illinois public schools. Scott Bellabradic from SIUE and Amanda Sutton from SIUC serve on the committee. Just like we have been doing, IBHE is working on a strategic plan, and they've identified 3 priority areas. And they've identified strategy working groups within these areas. The first priority area is increase post-secondary credential degree attainment to develop the talent that drives Illinois economy. The 4 strategy work groups in this area are for future work and future learning, workforce, focusing on educator workforce priority, adults with some college but no degree, and high school college career connections. Priority area 2 is to close equity gaps. The strategy team that has been developed here is design system to meet student needs. And priority area 3 is improve affordability and increase access and manage costs. 3 strategy groups have been developed by IBHE, and these are to increase opportunities for financial aid and reduce student debt, adequately and equitably fund higher education, and manage costs. So that's the work that IBHE is doing, and I'm happy to report that some of what we've been discussing, the system level, have been similar things. So the system strategic plan is progressing well. I'll move to that now. At the last board meeting, I presented our working group, our working vision and mission. Today, I'd like to present the working goal themes that the committee has developed. I believe we should have something on the screen for the goal themes that will come up pretty soon. So using data analyses from the applied research consultants, we looked at all the data that we have. There's a lot of surveys that have been done, as well as a lot of discussions. The committee initially came up with 8 themes that would help us achieve our mission. These 8 themes were subsequently distilled down into 5 themes. And the 5 themes are academic innovation and student success, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community impact, research, creative activity and partnerships, faculty, staff, and infrastructure. And you will see that below each of the goal themes, is a statement that the committee has come up for the goal themes. So we have a working vision, we have a working mission, and now we have working goal themes. We had an open comment period that ended on February 5th, and we have received several comments. In addition to that, we will have 2 town halls on February 15th from 12 noon to 1, and February 17th from 5 to 6 p.m. Once we receive the feedback, the committee will finalize the vision, mission, and goal themes, and then we'll form goal committees. The goal committees will then create objectives and specific strategies to help achieve our goal themes. And we will also have metrics that will help assess whether we have actually achieved our strategies and objectives. That ends my report, Dr. Hightower.
Excellent, excellent report. Thank you so much. Next order of business, approval of minutes of the December 3rd, 2020 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there? Okay, we have a motion. May I have a second? I'll second it. Madam Secretary, please perform the roll call.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Next order of business, information report, athletics, Dr. Gupchuk.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. Today we have our athletics directors, Liz Jarnigan from SIUC and Tim Hall from SIUE, and they will present academic highlights. The reports have been submitted to you, and you will see that our athletes are doing very well. Liz, would you please start with your report, and then Tim, if you could please follow.
Yes, thank you. I do have a small little set of slides, if it's possible for me to share my screen. Is that possible?
Yes. Yes.
That should be.
I'm trying to share here.
Liz, you can now. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you. All right, can everybody see the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right, okay. Good morning, everybody. And thank you again this year for the opportunity to share good news about our Saluki student athletes. There is much good news, as you may have seen in your packet. What a year it's been for all of us. What a year it's been for college students, and what a year it's been for college student athletes. Saluki Athletics has a set of core values we call our Saluki standards. And as the pandemic has impacted us over the past year, I'm really proud to say that our student athletes have demonstrated that middle set of core values very well. Toughness, discipline, hard work, and resiliency. And it's evidenced in the results in the classroom that I plan to share with you. Before we get into it, just a couple of our many highlights from last year. Last year, we added the sport of women's soccer. They competed in the fall for the first time. And they are now, because of the pandemic, preparing to compete in their second season this spring. They start in just a matter of days. We also had 2 student athletes who earned academic All-American honors, Jacob Marnin from football and Taiwana Eason for women's track and field. That brings our institutional total to 101 academic All-Americans, and that is in the Missouri Valley Conference. We're very proud of that statistic. Then we also had 14 of our 15 Saluki teams earning their highest ever team GPAs in the fall or the spring. Some of them actually earned their highest team GPA in the fall and then again topped it in the spring. So set records twice in both semesters. For fall 2019, our student athletes averaged a 3.24 GPA. 76% of them earned a 3.0. A whopping 63 earned a 4.0. And then 14 of the 15 teams earned a team GPA of 3.0 or better. You can see that men's swimming and diving earned the highest men's team GPA at 3.511, and softball earned the highest team overall GPA at 3.675. And then for the spring 2020, our overall GPA was 3.6. GPA with a 3.747, and the women's cross country team earned the highest overall GPA of 3.909. You can see here the combined fall and spring together for each GPA for each of our sports. And you'll see that every single one of the teams collectively earned over a 3.0 GPA for the year. And the overall total for our student athletes for the year was 3.397. So we've provided you with a lot of data and metrics with regard to student athlete academics. I decided I would just point to 3 specific areas. Those areas are related to the brand new NCAA academic revenue distribution component that went into play just last year. The 3 components are the GSR, the FGR, and APR. GSR is the graduation success rate. That is a metric that is more of a real-time measure of how we're doing in terms of graduating our student athletes than the FGR is. FGR uses data that goes back 6 and 7 years even. So FGR difference is another metric, and that is the difference between the student athlete federal graduation rate and the federal graduation rate of the in general. And then the single year APR, which is the academic progress rate, another NCAA metric that demonstrates how well an institution does in terms of maintaining the eligibility and retention athlete by athlete on a semester by semester basis. You'll see what the standards are in order to meet the academic distribution metric. An institution needs to meet just one of those standards. They are very high standards. And while we fell just short in 2 of them, the GSR and APR for last year, we did meet the standard and the federal graduation rate difference metric at 18.2%. And so we are pleased to say that we did qualify for that, the NCAA distribution. And we plan to do so by meeting every single metric, all 3 of them in future years. Now, finally, I wanted to just share with you that we're very, very pleased to report that we have been released from oversight by the OCR for our Title IX participation opportunities issue. They notified our institution in June that we no longer are obligated to send reports. Some of you may be aware that in the past, we've had an issue with our participation opportunities with regard to gender and our Title IX responsibilities. And this graph shows you the story. You may or may not be able to see all the actual numbers and the percentages, but Here's the story. Take a look at the lines and the trends. The top two lines, the orange and the yellow, represent our overall men's participation opportunities in athletics as compared to the overall full-time undergraduate enrollment of men at our institution. And you'll see that there's a gap that had pulled us out of a compliance over the past several years. And last year, you'll see that the gap was nearly closed. The same is true for the bottom two lines, the gray and the blue. Those lines represent the student athlete, female participation opportunities as compared to the overall full-time undergraduate enrollment of women at our university. And again, you see there that 2 years ago, we began pulling ourselves into an alignment. And last year, not only did we achieve the Title IX required substantial proportionality, we achieved actual proportionality. So wanted to share with you that very good news. Thank you again for the opportunity to brag about our student athletes, and be happy to entertain any questions now or later if you have any.
Any questions, Liz?
Just a comment. Great job and congratulations to you, the athletic department, our chancellor, for getting us out of off the issue, away from the issue of the Title IX participation opportunities. That's huge. So great job on that.
Thank you.
And congratulations to our athletes.
Thank you.
Moving on to Edwardsville.
Good morning, everybody. And like Liz mentioned, thanks for allowing us the opportunity to spend some time with you and present some of the successes academically that we've had here on the Edwardsville campus. I did not put a slide together, but you should have a document in your materials that I will go through at a pretty quick pace, being cognizant of your time and schedules. We'll start on page 2, the academic points of pride at the very top of the page. Spring 2020 marked the 28th consecutive semester, so that's 14 years running, that our student athletes have achieved a cumulative semester grade point average of greater than a 3.0. During the fall of 19 and the spring of 20, an average of 50% of our student athletes were on the dean's list, and 74% of our student athletes had a semester grade point average of higher than 3.0. In 1920, our graduation success rate of 91% was 34th in all of Division I public institutions and number 2 in the state of Illinois. For the 2019-2020 academic year, 5 of our teams earned a perfect 1,000 on the GSR: women's basketball, men's golf, women's soccer, women's tennis, and volleyball. And then finally, in 2019, 7 SIUE teams received top 10% recognition for their multi-year academic progress rate: men's golf, men's track and field, softball, women's track and field, women's cross country, women's volleyball, and women's tennis. And I think it's also important to note that that's the most earned by any team in the Ohio Valley Conference. If we then turn to page 4, you will see 2 tables. Table 1 is term GPA by gender, and table 2 is term GPA by ethnicity. And you can see the good work that we're doing in each of those areas. What I really want to pay special attention to in table 2 is the work that our student athletes are doing as it relates to diversity and minority populations. I think we're doing a fantastic job there. And again, in table 1, our metrics are higher than the general SIUE student population. If we turn to page 5, table 3, SIUE term GPA by sport. you'll see that everybody is above a 3-point and has been, except for wrestling, and we're at 2.98. We're really close. And so one of our goals is to not only attempt to increase all of our other sports, but to get wrestling above a 3.0. And then on page 6, table number 7, you'll see that all of our teams are significantly above the minimum 930 academic progress rate cut score. I think we're doing a really good job in that area. And then finally, on page 7, table number 8, the graduation success rate. Last year, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of my comments, we were at 91%. And as you see, relative to OVC institutions, we are second only to Belmont University. And then in regards to our state peers, we're in good stead there near the top. So the last thing I'll say is, in terms of the Academic Performance Fund, like Liz mentioned, we met all 3 categories, GSR of 91%. We had a 20% difference in the federal graduation rate, and an APR institutional greater than 985. So we received the funds by meeting one, but we met all 3 of those. So in closing, thanks for your continued support of our student athletes and our coaches as we build them to be the future leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you, Tim. Questions or comments for Liz or Tim from the trustees? Let me just say that as someone been in education and athletics all my life. Roger, you have a question? Okay.
I'm off too.
Hello?
It's Ed Curtis. I'm off too, but I can hear you.
Okay.
So it's not your system. It's, it's just they somehow dropped us. Can you still see the screen?
Yes.
No, I can't see the screen. And our whole internet, it just came back up. Let me see if I.
No, excellent report from both campuses. Very pleased.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Let me just say this, and then we'll move on. It's, as someone been in athletics all my life at the highest level, it's quite gratifying to see the positives coming from both institutions, Edwardsville and Carbondale. And it's even more so nice to not read all of the negativity about our athletes that you see in the public forum at various universities. So Tim and Liz and Tim, great job, great report, and we really appreciate the comments. Okay, good. We're going to move on. Next, we have the Cougar Connectors. Dr. Gupchuk.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. Congratulations, Liz and Tim, for all the work you're doing. To move on, it's my pleasure now to introduce to you the student program, Cougar Connectors, a new initiative. Dr. Eric Ruck is an associate professor of history and director of SIUE's University Honors Program. Dr. Ruck is a European intellectual historian. He received a BA from Bucknell University and his doctoral degree from University of California, Irvine. He has published essays ranging from interventions on philosophy of history through the history of friendship. He's currently working on several projects and has also presented at national and international conferences. Dr. Ruck has been the director of SIUE's honors program since 2013. In that position, he has led its redevelopment and helping make it a vibrant and robust part of the SIUE campus. He has also had the privilege of teaching a range of courses in the program, from examinations on the history of friendship through courses on the philosophy of erotic love to a course on artificial intelligence. These courses have allowed him to continue to develop his virtuosity in seminar-style teaching while taking the joy in the experience. Accompanying Dr. Ruck is Ian Toberman. He's the Assistant Director for the SIUE Honors Program. Ian started SIUE in 2011 as an academic advisor and then moved through the ranks, and he became Assistant Director in 2019 of the Honors Program. He now coordinates honors advising, honors recruitment, and spearheads efforts for inclusivity, and equity in the honors education. Ian earned a BA in political science from Millikan, where he was a member of the honors program, a master's degree in education from Miami University, and an MBA from University of Illinois, Springfield. Thank you, Dr. Ruck and Mr. Toberman, for being here. Would you kindly introduce your students and go ahead with the presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupchup. It's a pleasure to be here. Ian, could you quickly introduce our three students, please? Ian?
Ian, you are muted.
Sorry.
Thank you all. It is my pleasure to introduce you to three of our Cougar Connectors. Colin Boyson, who was the co-leader of the group and whose praises cannot be sung louder and higher, and whose birthday is tomorrow, by the way. It's also my pleasure to introduce you to Alexia Burnett and Marcus Quaza. They are two of the students who served as our connectors this semester, and they will tell you more about themselves as they go through their presentation.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you again, Girish. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to the board for having us. So it was apparent late last spring after our provost, Denise Cobb, asked me to take the lead in academic planning in relation to the COVID emergency, that we would face formidable challenges. Those challenges would range from problems with physical space through human behavior, problems associated with the transmission of the virus, to the history of the governance of universities. Those problems not only are substantial in and of themselves, they are also wickedly entangled. And so it became absolutely apparent that it would be necessary to have the widest kind of involvement in solving those problems, and that it would be hard to kind of navigate the maze of trying to maintain safety on the one hand and academic excellence on the other. In the midst of that crisis, in the first stages of that crisis, it was apparent to me that the needs of our incoming cohort of first-year students would be particularly important to be attentive to. They would be beginning the university in the middle of a global health crisis, and we would have to pay particular attention to them. One of the advantages of being of a robust honors program is that robust honors programs can be kind of test beds or seed beds for innovative practices that may have the potential to serve the wider campus. My role as honors director at SIUE allowed me to see that our program and the Honors Student Association at SIUE could help the campus as a whole. Specifically, over the last few years, we have developed a robust and effective peer-to-peer mentoring program for honors students. Thinking about the challenges the incoming cohort of the matriculating cohort of fall 2020 would face, I immediately called Colin Boyson, the president of the SIUE Honors Student Association, and challenged him to figure out a way, with our assistance, of scaling up the honors peer-to-peer mentoring program to the entire incoming class of first-year students. That class was about 1,500, and I gave Colin 2 months to do it. I'm going to turn it over to Colin and the other two Cougar Connectors, Alexia and Marcus, to let them tell you what came of that challenge.
Thank you, Eric. And as Eric said, the foundation of the Cougar Connector program was inspired by the Honors Student Association Peer Mentoring Program. This is a program that pairs first-year students with upper-class peer mentors based on common interests, usually majors. In the past, we've had approximately 100 students involved in this program. But as Eric said again, the Cougar Connectors program aimed to serve about 1,500 brand new students, the entire first year class. So we immediately realized that a peer mentorship program might have been a good model, but it would need to be adjusted. Sheer size and our limited time frame meant that we would need to focus on helping students connect to SIUE through peers rather than provide specific individualized context for everyone. After receiving Eric's charge, Ian and I took the roles of co-leaders and put together a steering committee of honors and non-honors students to help us accomplish our goals. To make this program real, we had to develop content, recruit volunteers, about 150 of them, and coordinate with the first semester transition course, referred to as FST. The FST is SIUE's course-based orientation and transition program. It's taught by faculty across the university. And the reason we wanted to partner with the FST is because it already had an established curriculum. So by working with Dr. Matthew Shunke, we were able to complement what this class was working on and establish some long-term goals of incorporating a peer connection in this program. We had to accomplish all this in less than 2 months. It wasn't just a charge from Eric. It was the Manhattan Project of mentorship. Ian, if you could just play the next slide. What developed was the Cougar Connectors, a program providing every first-year student with a peer connector that would help them adjust to college life. This kind of program is especially valuable and important during these trying times, although I will say it has exceptional benefits even in normal times. We see its extra value right now because we can't develop those standard hallway connections that just happen naturally. So ultimately, our aim was to provide a substitute for those kinds of natural relationships that would spawn between first year and upper class students by giving them this connection program. Next slide, Ian. What we, the Cougar Connectors, were real people, a real peer presence to talk about formal and informal issues. We wanted to offer a peer that first-year students could talk about struggles ranging from studying issues to roommate conflicts. We did our best to offer complimentary content to the FST, so they would discuss content throughout the semester, have some talking points for their meetings. And while the students were talking, they could talk about this with their connector and in their FST course. And if they didn't actively participate, we continued to reach out to them just to let them know we were there. Next slide, please. I don't think anyone will deny that this was a crazy semester for sure. And we had to remain constantly flexible with this program. But even in our first iteration, we saw fantastic successes. The Cougar Connectors program ultimately showed that we were able to accomplish a lot of things that people were originally skeptical on. We did work with the FST program and able to create a successful co-curricular cooperation. And sometimes this is even preferable than not having this cooperation. We're able to scale up a massive program in an incredibly quick time frame. We had 150 active connectors that were consistently available to all 1,500 students in the first year class. Of those 1,500, about a quarter were actively engaged with us in some capacity. Another half were passively involved, whether just reading emails or messaging occasionally. And the rest, we provided a safety net to by always being available, by consistently reaching out. So that way, if they did ever need us, they had a resource. Our end of semester survey also suggests that students felt moderately more connected and cared about by the university and their connector. Part of our success was helping those 150 volunteers. It stems beyond the first year students we helped and goes to these 150 volunteers by helping them feel more connected to SIUE, as well as empower them to serve their campus and their peers. It is these 150 volunteers that Ian and I, at least, believe are one of the purest highlights of the Cougar Connector program. There was a lot of skepticism on if putting together a team this large was feasible. But what the Cougar Connector program demonstrated was that SIUE has a dedicated student population that wants to help. Ian and I constantly praise these students, so let me briefly tell you who was part of it. We had a mix of non-honor students and honor students, with 61% being part of 3 or more student organizations, and 77% were in some sort of employment in addition to being full-time students. Next slide, please. 25% of our members were from historically underrepresented populations, and 70% were females. Next slide again. And we had a nice dispersion, a nice mix of sophomores, juniors, and seniors all coming out to help. But we also even had some grad students. We had a full showing of the SIUE student population to support this program to help first-year students. They also all came from a wide range of majors and backgrounds, and studies. The entire SIU population showed their best in the Cougar Connectors. And with that, let me turn it over to two of our fantastic volunteers to tell you about their experience.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexia Burnett. I am a sophomore in the nursing program, and I'm very involved on campus with various organizations and committees. I'm involved in Epsilon, Sigma Alpha, Phi Eta Sigma, student government, where I represent the School of Nursing, and several others. I heard about Cougar Connectors through student government, and after getting very detailed descriptions of what the program hoped to do, I decided to apply. I was paired with 10 students, and just by accident, I was placed with mostly nursing students. So as a nursing student myself, I was able to offer lots of insider advice for their program. For example, all nursing students must pass an entry exam to continue studying nursing. I was able to give them my first-hand advice on how to study, so I was really excited whenever one of my students shared that it was my studying tips that helped them pass. It also gave hope to the students that had yet to take it. I know that nursing students have crazy schedules, so students didn't really come to my informal Zoom hours. Instead, they let me know that GroupMe worked much better. They said that it was easier for them to message me really quick if they had a question rather than wait for a meeting time each week. I had a lot of students use the GroupMe just because they didn't know how something works, like how to use Blackboard or how to email a professor professionally. My students most often ask questions about getting involved, like joining a sport or joining a frat or sorority. It was rewarding for me to share my experience personally and give them more information. I also point them in the direction to find more information online so at least they could make an informed decision. And even though I got fewer questions as the semester progressed, I was always available to them. I still messaged them every week just to let them know that I was there and that I cared how they were doing. I loved getting to know these new freshmen and to help them succeed here at SIUE. That's why I volunteered to be a Cougar Connector again this semester. This time I am partnered with another connector, and I am looking forward to helping the students any way I can. I wish that a program like this had existed when I was a freshman. It's important work, and I know that as we get more experience, we'll be able to improve the program and make it vital to the first year experience at SIUE. I know that I'll stay involved personally, and thank you for the opportunity to come and share my experiences. And now I'll hand it off to Marcus.
Thank you, Lexi. My name is Marcus Quaza, and I served as a Cougar Connector in the fall semester, along with another connector that helped me lead a group. I am also a nursing major and had a group of students from all different majors and interests. We set up similar options to Lexi, but we ended up emailing our students more often rather than using a different medium such as GroupMe. Throughout the semester, we were always present at our so-called office hours if the students needed support, but we didn't get as active support, or not support, participation from our students as we had hoped. Even in that, we learned something. We would email our students every week of our office hours, but at first, we didn't include the topics that we wanted to discuss that week. We learned that we needed to be more detailed in the emails and be more direct about what was going to be gone over that week. That way, when students were or weren't able to attend to the office hours, they would still benefit from the information that we were trying to communicate. This lesson is what led me to get more involved in the program this semester. I am one of several students that are available to the faculty teaching the FST course as an on-call connector. If a faculty member feels like a student needs guidance or help, any one of us can step in to help for a minute or any longer as deemed necessary. I am also taking on a new role leading a group with goals to reevaluate and develop the curriculum of the Cougar Connectors program. In the fall, we followed the curriculum that was set by the FST classes, but we received feedback from the students that sometimes it got repetitive. Now that we have time to think about the coming fall, we can use the feedback from the FST students and our experiences as upperclassmen to work on what can be improved in the curriculum. For example, we were able to take the diversity of our majors and experiences as students to develop a subject such as study skills. Some of us use to-do list, others use spaced repetition to help with memorization, and some other people, including myself, like to teach the subject as a means of retention. We're looking to build a new curriculum that still complements the FST content, but also takes into account our knowledge, our experience, and our ability to have a near peer relationship with new students. My goal for this semester is to grow. We can expand what we talk about with the students, and we can expand how we talk with them. We want this program to be an important part of the first year experience at SIUE, as it was for me when I had mentors to look up to, and I am proud to be a part of this process of developing this program. Thank you guys for letting me share. I'll now turn it over to Ian.
Colin, Lexi, and Marcus are just 3 of the 150 student volunteers who signed up for an idea, but made it into a program. All of us here working together showed that it was possible, that we could rely on upper-class students to support new students who they had never met, that we could work across campus groups on campus, honors and non-honors, Greek and independent, student athletes, student leaders, and students yearning for a chance to lead, to come together with a shared identity and purpose. As we demonstrated that while people like Dr. Rook and I could support these efforts, it's that our students could give it life, that they could make it soar. We had 1,500 students, first-year students, who refused to let COVID change their college plans. But we knew our way of life, that part of the campus experience that makes SIUE feel special, it was threatened by a worldwide pandemic. So we proudly present to you our response to that, a program brought to life by students to serve students. We share with you our Cougar Connectors.
Great.
Wow. I just say wow again. What an exciting program. It gives you goosebumps. It's what it does. Questions or comments from the trustees?
Great program. I think students helping students, that's the way to go. It helps in the retention too.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Absolutely.
Dr. Ruck, question for you. First of all, I commend you. It's exciting. It's exciting to use this type of instrument for supporting, energizing, and providing freshman students the confidence to get them through that first difficult year. We know how difficult that freshman year is. Mm-hmm. But you challenged Ann and others to come up with a program in 2 months. Why? You know, if I may ask you that.
It's a great question, Dr. Hightower. I challenged Colin because I had the great privilege of working with Colin and other wonderful students in the HSA, the Honor Student Association. I knew from working closely with honor students initially what they were capable of, and I was confident. I mean, there were about 98% of things I was utterly unconfident about when Dr. Cobb initially challenged me to like take the lead in COVID planning for SIUE. But I was absolutely confident that Colin and the people around him would be able to create this program. I mean, of that matter, I had no doubt because I knew him and I knew the other people in the Honor Student Association. I knew also that they were committed to reaching outside of the honors program into the wider community and bring in people like Lexi and Marcus and over 100 other students. I knew they would do that. I knew they wanted to help the institution, and that if they were given the opportunity, they would not disappoint me or Denise or Randy or all of you. I also knew that they could make a contribution that would go beyond the COVID pandemic and help us improve our first year transition experience. And that they could show us the way. Because one of the things that I've been committed to as a professor and a teacher is the idea that university professors and teachers always have a great opportunity to learn from students, right? It is deeply embedded in my experience as a professor and my experience as an academic, that students can teach us. They're the ones who will renew the future of the world. They're the ones who will renew the future of institutions like SIUE and the SIU system. And so I turned to Colin and others because I knew that they would help create the future.
Will you be pushing and scaling this out, the good work that you guys are doing, marketed and telling the story to other institutions that are looking for ways to support incoming freshmen, particularly now during this pandemic, and even after this pandemic somewhat subsides? We're going to be looking for innovative ways to address the needs of the incoming students for sustainability. How will you do that?
So it's another excellent question, Dr. Hightower. The first way, we're already looking for opportunities at a variety of national conferences to allow Ian and Marcus and Lexi and others to go and take the program to those conferences. The first one might be the National Collegiate Honors Conference. That would be one place to begin, but it wouldn't be the only place to begin. I'm sure with the help of Dr. Cobb and Dr. Robin Berkeley, the dean of our School of Education, that they can help point me to other kind of national conferences that focus on these kind of programs, so that we can support some of the students and other faculty who ultimately became involved and send them out to promote the program. But because of my role as honors director, the first place that I thought about was the honors conference, but we won't limit it to that by any means. So yes, we are thinking about that. And of course, Denise and Randy gave us this great opportunity, and Garish to present to you. So this is a first small step in making visible what Colin and Marcus and Lexi and over 100 other students at SIU we have done.
Well, I tell you what, I've been on the board a long time, and this is certainly something that I'll just speak for myself. I'm always concerned about the freshmen, as are other trustees. How are we not only recruiting, but more importantly, once we get the people on campus, how are we supporting them? How are we giving them the confidence? How are we saying to them, we're here with you. We're going to hold your hand, and we're going to make sure that you succeed your freshman year to give you the emphasis to go into your sophomore and on and graduate in 4 years, 5 years, or what have you. A great presentation. Awesome presentation.
Thank you very much.
Anything else from the trustees? Grace, anything else from you?
Dr. Hightower, I just wanted to comment that in the chat, Mira mentioned it's an amazing program, and I agree with her. Thank you for saying that. I just wanted to let you know, Eric, that Mira mentions is great. And I really think it's an amazing personification of empathy and altruism. And, programs like this build culture. And as Peter Drucker said, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So kudos. And thank you to all the students. Thank you to Ian. Thank you, Colin, Marcus, and Lexi. That's all I have, Dr. Hightower. Great presentation.
Thank you. And that concludes the Academic Matters Committee meeting for today. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
The next meeting is a Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Tendrick, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item, the Finance Committee is now in session. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the meeting held December 3rd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Madam Secretary, will you perform a roll call vote?
Hendrick,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
And the item is approved. Committee item 2 proposes approval to amend purchase, expand targeted recruitment and outreach with academic partnerships for online programs with the School of Education, Health and Human Behavior at SIUE. Chancellor Pembroke, Pembroke, will you speak to this item?
Thank you, Chair Tedrick. I'm pleased to do that. The AP contract item we're talking about, I believe, is item K in your materials. It involves a partnership with an organization called Academic Partnerships. AP helps grow programs and expand our academic offerings in particular areas. This is an expansion of an existing contract. That contract started in 2018 with our partnership with AP relating to our online MBA program. So to give you one quick measure of success, that MBA program has gone from 93 students to 447 students in the last 4 years. What we're proposing today is to add 3 additional items to this contract. The 3 items coming from our School of Education, Health, and Human Behavior, including a master's in curriculum and instruction, an endorsement for principal preparation, and an endorsement for a teacher leader who helps in building coordinators, technology, faculty development, et cetera. The AP responsibilities would include marketing, recruiting, and helping the students with course scheduling to succeed through the program. It would be a 50-50 split of revenues. The School of Education is supportive of this program. We expect growth in curriculum and instruction to go from roughly 35 to 110, and the endorsement areas from 40 to 50 to around 150. So with that, I recommend this to the committee.
Thank you, Chancellor. Is there any other discussion? Is there a motion for the committee to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Secretary, please perform the roll call vote.
Tedrick,
Yes?
Curtis,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
And the motion carries. Committee item 3 proposes approval of salary and title change, Executive Director of Marketing, Communication, and Engagement at the School of Medicine, SIUC, which is board agenda item L. Dean Cruz, will you speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. Several years ago, we took actions to bring together all of the academic and clinical functions for marketing, communication, and engagement together to work in an integrated fashion. In 2018, we hired Rakisha Phelan to do this for the School of Medicine and for the practice, SIU Healthcare. She has had an excellent performance. Since coming in 2018, we've added functions for her as well, governmental relations, website management, and event and sponsorship coordination. So we're asking for approval of this in acknowledgement of her excellent performance and her expansion of duties.
Thank you, Dean. Any discussion? Is there a motion for the committee to approve this item?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll say, okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll call vote.
Tedrick,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
And the motion carries. Committee item 4 proposes salary and appointment for the Associate Dean for Faculty, School of Dental Medicine at SIUE. Chancellor Pembroke.
Thank you, Chair Tedrick. It is my pleasure to recommend Dr. Dwayne Douglas as the Associate Dean for Faculty at SIU School of Dental Medicine. The Associate Dean for Faculty serves as the Administrative Officer for overall management and leadership of the school's faculty, and also functions as the school's Director of Research. We did an internal search for this position in that we thought the individual should have intimate knowledge of the school's faculty. There were on-campus interviews that occurred, and from that, the search committee, the dean, and I recommend that Dr. Douglas be accepted in this position.
Thank you, Chancellor. Is there any discussion? Is there a motion for the Finance Committee to approve this item?
So moved.
So second.
Madam Secretary, please perform the roll call vote.
Tedrick,
Yes.
Curtis,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
This item is approved by the committee. And if there's no further business, this short Finance Committee meeting is over.
Thank you, Mr. Tedrick. The next item of business is approval of the minutes of the meeting of the board held December 3rd of last year. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Whittington, please call the roll.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower, Hightower,
Yes.
okay. Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick,
Yes.
The minutes are approved. I don't think there's any trustee reports. Next, for committee reports, I will report that the executive committee has not met between board meetings. We will now go into the executive officers' reports. President Mahoney, will you present your report for the SIU system?
Thank you, Chair Gilbert. Just a few things to highlight. First of all, I just want to go back to the reports we heard earlier. I mean, just outstanding academic performance by our athletic departments. And I should reiterate, qualifying for the academic performance-based benefits that the NCAA now provides is not easy to do. Those are very high standards, and both athletic departments hit that criteria. That's something we should be proud of, both what it indicates from our academic performance, but also there's financial incentives now. That's part of the way the NCAA distributes the basketball money is through those academic performance-based measures. So that allows us to put more money into supporting those student athletes and continuing that success. And also the Cougar Connection program, just an outstanding way of using peer mentoring. I've seen a lot of peer mentoring programs. I've been involved with a few in the past, but I'm not sure I've seen one as comprehensive. And certainly I don't think I've seen one that the students pretty much developed on their own, which was incredibly impressive. So some good news there. As we discussed earlier, from a budget standpoint, it continues to be challenging to deal with all of the impact of COVID, whether it was on housing, dining, our School of Medicine. There's lots of impacts. We did get some money in the second COVID relief bill, which we're very happy with, and that support will certainly help. But I should be clear, the losses have well exceeded what was received in the second COVID relief bill, and actually in the first two COVID relief bills. So there still has a need this year to be both conservative in how we budgeted, but also to make some of the reductions in different areas that people, the chancellors and the dean of medicine talked about. So we're not certainly made whole by that financial support, but again, very appreciative of our federal leaders and the support they've been providing. And there's of course discussions of an additional amount of support, which again would get us closer, but still would not make us completely whole. It's also important to point out with the distributions we get through those that a lot of it has to go towards the students, which is really helped by students, but doesn't necessarily fill in all the holes that exist within our own budgets. Which means, as much as we always say it, it's particularly important that enrollment, recruitment efforts, that is the way that we'll continue to do well or better financially. The chancellors are going to provide more detail in just a bit, so I'm not going to go into that, but just to say that the spring numbers overall were pretty positive, given the challenges that we've had right now with COVID. And I think there's some promising signs as we look towards fall 21 that we're really going to be heading towards an upward swing in what we're seeing with enrollment in the years to come. And so I feel optimistic about that. We are doing our planning for fall of 2021. That continues to be very challenging given the enormous amount of uncertainty that exists. I keep saying this, but there's never been more uncertainty in higher education of what to expect, and that makes it challenging. But I want to be clear, our approach has been and will continue to be to plan for the most positive fall 2020 we can reasonably expect to happen. So again, planning for the most positive outcome for fall 2021 that we think is reasonable to expect. And then if we have to adjust later and pull back from that a little bit, we'll do that then, with the goal of being closer certainly to fall 2019 than to what we had in fall 2020 or even have this spring. How close we get to all that depends on a number of factors, frankly, that aren't clear. The number of people we can get vaccinated on our campuses certainly is a big part of that. I should point out when we talk about going back to fall 19, sometimes people say, well, it means we'll be totally face-to-face again. We were never totally face-to-face, haven't been at least in a long period of time. The period of time where higher education was totally face-to-face was maybe 20 some years ago. So it's been a long time. We will continue to have some online classes, some hybrid classes, because we have in the past. So it won't be totally face-to-face. And actually, we found, I think, through the pandemic, some opportunities to do some things creatively using hybrid and online classes. And I'll even use my own class as an example. In the fall, I was able to teach an honors class and had students both from Carbondale and Edwardsville in the class. And when I teach that class again for the honors program in the spring of 2022, we obviously will not be doing that as a face-to-face class. That wouldn't be practical given we have students on both campuses. So we'll continue to take advantage of the opportunities to do some things online and hybrid going forward. But where we can and where we want to be as close, as many face-to-face classes as possible in fall of 21. Chancellors will certainly talk about some of the testing results that we've had, but overall they continue to be very positive, and we've had testing positive rates for COVID well below the regions in which we are. And again, want to compliment our faculty, staff, and students in how they've been able to manage things in their lives to make sure that we've been able to keep those testing rates actually very, very low. And I should point out, talking with other university presidents around the country, that's not true for everybody. So I don't take that for granted. That's not a given. They really have done an outstanding job. And the testing program both campuses have used has been very effective. As Dr. Gupchuk talked about earlier, the strategic plan, I just want to say I appreciate all the feedback we've gotten. Again, the overwhelming number of survey responses we've gotten, and want to encourage people to participate in the open forums next week. Again, February 15th at noon and February 17th at 5 p.m. I won't be an active participant, but I certainly will be listening in and hearing all of that feedback that we get on where we are at this point. Should point out too, these are different than the listen and learn sessions that Chancellor Lane has been doing for SIU Carbondale. Again, they're going through their own strategic planning process. At the same time, we're doing the system strategic planning process. But that being said, I think all of the plans will be very well aligned. I think we're hearing the same types of things, and the goals will be very, very, very similar. Vice President Gupchuk also talked about the Ibhe strategic plan early in the meeting. I was able to have a very good discussion with Ginger Ostrow, who's the executive director of Ibhe, and John Atkinson, who's the chair of that board, just last week. They've been meeting with the university presidents. I do want to say I appreciate the opportunity that Ibhe has made throughout their entire strategic planning process to include the universities in getting input for us and really reaching out to us. And that's been very helpful. What I can say from what Vice President Gupchuk presented to you earlier, I think it's pretty clear that the priorities they have will be very much aligned with the priorities we have in our plan. And so I think, again, much like the Carbondale plan and the Edwardsville plans and the School of Medicine plan will fit well into our system plan, I think our system plan will be really coinciding with what we see in the Ibhe plan, a lot of very similar goals. So I'm very optimistic about how that will be going forward. As we're working on the strategic plan, as Vice President Gupchuk talked about earlier, I always say as we're moving forward with the planning, we don't sit still. We're trying to do some new things. He highlighted really the Institute for Rural Health and the Office for Community Transformation, both of which are very much aligned with the community impact focus within the strategic plan that we're developing. I'm extremely excited about both those things. I think for the time I took the job, at the first press conference, I talked about the importance as a public university of serving our region, of serving the people in the state of Illinois. Both of those are great examples of where we can have tremendous amount of community impact that is beneficial to the community, and actually great opportunities for our faculty, staff, and students as well. So I'm very excited about both those initiatives. And as Vice President Gupchuk said, really moved forward very quickly, given how things generally move slowly in higher education. Those have moved forward very, very fast, and we want to continue to move those forward very quickly. So thank you to Vice President Gupchuk, Dean Cruz, and really everybody else who's been involved with the efforts at this point to get us to where we are. I also want to say, and I know this will come up a little bit later too, thank you to everybody across the system. There have been, I presented this in an earlier meeting, but there continues to be more and more examples of how the SIU system has provided support to Illinois during the COVID crisis. And I do appreciate all of the efforts that everyone has put into that. And again, every day I think we see another example where some other way we're contributing to helping the state through this pandemic. Finally, also related to the strategic plan, the anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion focus continues to move forward. There are a number of efforts that are occurring on each campus and at the system level. One of the things we're working right now, we have a meeting later this month to start really defining clear metrics to which we'll hold ourselves accountable as far as our diversity, equity, inclusion activities. And so we're working on that. It's always a complicated process, but once we have that, we'll share that with you. And that's what we'll continually present on a regular basis about how well we're doing. The chancellors will talk about the searches they have for chief diversity officers. I want to say the system level chief diversity officer and vice president for anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion search is moving forward quite well. We're in the recruitment stage right now. And if all goes as we planned, we will be bringing a recommendation for that vice president to the board meeting at the end of April. So we expect to be able to conclude everything we need to do by that point. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to keep to that schedule. Finally, I say we have another conversation of understanding, which we've been doing on a monthly basis on February 23rd from 5 to 7 p.m. This one is focusing on international students and the challenges they face, as well as the opportunities we have as a system to support them. So that'll be our next conversation of understanding. So that's my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for President Mahoney? Okay, thank you, President Mahoney. Chancellor Lane, will you present your report for the Carbondale campus?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think I have 2 slides, very quick slides, so won't be long. And hopefully I can get some help with them being put up here. And if not, I'll just keep talking.
Give us just a second.
Okay, thank you. All right, there it is. Well, I couldn't miss an opportunity to show you a picture of all this snow that everybody told me we didn't get here in Southern Illinois, but here's proof that we have it. And I think the folks on campus are getting a little tired of me taking picture of all the snow and the ice. I think they're looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? This happens. So they didn't tell me that. So beautiful picture of our campus with all this great snow here. Very, very briefly, just wanted to touch on some of the things the president mentioned. Our spring enrollment, really excited about that. It included 36% more freshmen than last spring. That's a good sign for us. Remember that enrollment of first-time students was up 31% last fall. So again, this builds on that number in part because the number of students who started for the first time this spring more than doubled. So we saw a pretty clear indication that students wanted to delay a little bit in the fall and start their academic careers in the spring. So that was a good sign that we didn't lose those students. We picked them up in the spring. Overall retention of first-time students from that class of fall of 2020, we had an 85% retention rate from fall to spring, which is very good given the pandemic. So we're feeling really good about keeping those students from that large freshman class and making sure they matriculated right through to the spring semester, which is really a good thing for us. I talked earlier about the fall enrollment of new students that continues to track ahead of last year's numbers, very promising, but we'll be working hard to increase our yield rates, as I mentioned as well, to close the deal on those students, make sure they actually register and attend. Among our new outreach, as we build the pipeline for the future, we have a few new strategic partnerships that you'll hear about here next week. Actually, we formed a really good partnership with Daniel Booth, who's one of our alums and actually serves as the superintendent of Carbondale District 95. So we want to plant that seed, that SIUC seed a little earlier with our elementary and middle school students, so we can make sure that they sort of grow up with us here in the community. And so as much as we can touch base with them and mentor and partner and tutor and give our volunteer service hours to those students and get them to our campus or their campus is going to be real beneficial down the road. So excited about that. Our launch, moving into safety or Saluki safety and COVID impact, and we have a Saluki community safety Zoom tomorrow to update the campus community on what's going on. But we required testing of on-campus students. Upon arrival, only about 1% were positive. So knock on wood, that was very, very good to hear and see that. It shows how careful our students were over the break. We remain really grateful to Rex over at SIH and Bart over at Jackson County Health Department for our free testing. That has been huge for us from the fall, and then again this spring. They've been doing free testing on our faculty, staff, and our students, and so we're excited about that partnership. Thanks to the second round of Federal CARES Act funds that we have offered assistance to 5,000 plus students, talked about that a little earlier, and so just excited that we've been able to help those students stay in college and keep moving towards their dreams. And so it's really refreshing. Judy and her staff, Dee Rotello, Mira, our provost, everybody has jumped right in, and John Frost, admissions, you name it, everybody has really been very helpful in making sure that we support our students. So that's a real big piece for us. I do want to highlight when we go over to people, really proud of the national recognition that Dr. Keith Gagnon is receiving. As you know, his laboratory is getting a lot of credit for their discovery of the new US-based variant of COVID-19. As you know, knowing about and understanding these mutations is important to understanding how they respond to the vaccine. Especially proud that students that are working side by side with both undergrad and graduate students in Dr. Gagnon's lab were able to be a part of this, which is one of the real feathers in our cap that a lot of our undergraduate students get a chance to engage in research as soon as they arrive on campus with our faculty. So that's very refreshing. That continues on. Looking ahead, we have a number of key leadership searches. As the president mentioned, we also have a vice chancellor diversity, equity, and inclusion search that's underway now. We hope to wrap that up in the spring. Also have an associate chancellor for enrollment management that we hope again to have that wrapped up here in the spring as well. And finally, we've got news from Ray Goldsmith. Ray has done an amazing job. She's been with us about 7.5 years. She has nearly 40 years of higher education experience. She has decided to retire and relax a little bit and enjoy life outside of SIUC. So I wanted to publicly congratulate her for all her hard work. And I know that she won't, I know she'll still probably answer the cell phone if we call her, but she probably won't be giving us all the help that we're getting now. So just wanted to give her some kudos there. And as the president mentioned, we are hoping to wrap our strategic planning efforts up at the end of the spring semester. They're going very well with the listening and learning tour, learning a lot about SIUC, and really applaud all of those who've been able to give me that good feedback about our institution and where they'd like us to go in the future. So that concludes my report, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Chancellor Lane? If not, Chancellor Penbrook, please provide your report for the Edwardsville campus.
Jerry, are you teed up to go next?
I'm ready to go. So
go ahead.
Did I do that? Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Whoa.
So he's going to do his own.
Where'd it go? Well,
the chancellors is the deans.
Okay, maybe I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I should be ready, but it's not letting me share here for some reason. Oh, there.
I'm just following Misty's orders. Dean Cruz, you want to give yours and then Chancellor Penbrook? I'm just following Misty's orders here.
I don't know where this thing went, to tell you the truth. This was all ready to go. I'm going to close it.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and go, Dean Cruz?
You trying to find something, Jerry?
I am, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so why don't we go with Randy and then give
we'll
Jerry
go
one
with
more
Chancellor
time.
Penbrook, and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So if someone can go ahead and get my slides up, that'd be great. Thank you. And if we can advance to the next slide immediately, that'd be great. And I'll give a little background here if we can move. There we go. In a moment, they're going to hit the loudspeaker button there. But I want to say I'm going to start this presentation with music partly because that's a good thing for the world to listen to more music, but also because we had an amazing thing happen just a few weeks ago, and that was that our professor of composition, Kim Archer, was commissioned by the president's own, the Marine Band, to write a piece for the Biden inauguration. And so the name of that piece, Fanfare Politeia, we're going to hear a little bit. It kind of opens with a quiet portion, and then at the end of my presentation, we'll get the big fanfare at the end to close out. So if you could go ahead and click on the speaker there and then hit the forward. Doesn't sound like anybody can hear anything. Can anyone hear anything?
We can hear it.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. Maybe when we do the closing part, we could have a speaker close to whatever is making the sound in Carbondale. So anyway, that's the opening. I'll send you the full link if you would like to see that, to listen to the entire piece. It's about 7 minutes, so congratulations to Kim. I'm going to concentrate on 4 key areas: enrollment, diversity, financial elements, and COVID safety. So as we look at the first slide, I want to say that our spring 10th day enrollment, spring 2021, was 98.7%, or basically 99% of our enrollment a year ago. So that's a wonderful thing. Graduate enrollment continues to increase. Undergraduate enrollment is down just a little bit, but the good news is that we had 86% freshman retention from fall to spring, and that our Hispanic enrollment is up all-time high. So that's a great thing. If you go ahead and advance to the next slide, I want to quickly talk about Starfish. It is a software program that allows faculty, advisors, staff, counselors to be talking to each other about issues regarding attendance, academic work, if there's a problem with midterm grades, finances, mental health. And so the use of Starfish has more than doubled in the last year, and we think that's an important part of retaining students. So we're very proud of that. If you'd move on to the next slide, please. If I talk about fall of 21, there's some positives and some negatives. Our overall applications for fall are down a little bit compared to last year, but last year was the highest year we ever had for applications right before COVID hit. And we're up 13% compared to 2 years ago. Admits are up dramatically, as you can see, and the diversity of that admissions class is also increasing, 23% increase in Black students. Our registrations for Springboard, which is people coming to learn how to get registered and all of that, learn about housing, et cetera, is up 5%. So we're looking at a dramatic increase there. I checked with Scott Bellabradic, and actually registration is up 10% now since we sent this in. So that's good. Transfers, you heard Chancellor Lane talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. Transfer applications are tricky right now. Community college enrollments are down by about 13%. So we're trying all kinds of things, including more interactions and more scholarships to try to increase that. Next slide, please. Goal 2, which I'll just very quickly mention, academic experience. I wanted to congratulate the dental school 100% on their pass rate. You can't get higher than 100%. Thank you to President Mahoney and also our Dean of SEHHB, Dean Hughes, for offering a class. And I also want to say again, we're so proud of Kim Archer. I think all of these things speak to the academic quality of the coursework that is being offered here. Next slide. I want to skip to the bottom of this and just point to the reentry testing process that SIUE used. Any faculty, staff, or student that was going to be on ground in spring 2021 was required to test. And so you can see we did almost 8,000 tests there. And of the 8,000, we only had 48 positives. So that's 0.6% positivity rate. We're in an area that has been testing consistently 8 to 10%. So I want to say thank you to our students, our faculty, and our staff for just doing all the things that are important in keeping positivity rates low on our campus. Next slide, please. The third area that I wanted to underscore have to do with the two bottom bullets here. We continue to focus on diversity of our campus. I want to congratulate Jamie Ball, our Director of EOA Title IX. She has been working with the academic units to create what we're calling equity advisors in those units. They help when search processes are going on. They help people develop a diverse pool, to write a job description that focuses on diversity, and to make sure that the search committees are trained. So excellent work there with Jamie Ball and the equity advisors. We last week concluded our campus interviews for the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion position. We had a very large pool of candidates, and the search committee determined that the two strongest candidates were internal candidates. So Dr. Lakeisha Butler and Dr. Jessica Harris interviewed for that position, and we hope to have a recommendation soon regarding the person that would be our next Vice Chancellor. Next slide, please. Just a couple of very quick things. President Mahoney mentioned how our campuses are working with our communities. I just wanted to underscore that our School of Engineering continues to create PPE devices using 3D printing, helping local hospitals, and our School of Pharmacy has telehealth care so that individuals understand how to have access to their pharmaceutical care and answer questions anyone might have about the products that they are taking. Next slide. The last thing that I want to talk about has to do with financial support. Chancellor Lane mentioned some of the ways that SIUC has been supported. In round one, what some people call CARES, we received 9.6 million, of which 4.8 million went to students and 4.8 million to help the university. The second round of emergency relief, which was approved December 27th, we got 15 million from that bill, of which again we had almost 5 million go to students and about 10 million for campus relief. And we're excited about the conversations going on about the third relief package. And as President Mahoney mentioned, that's not enough to cover all of our expenses, our lost revenues, but it is very important. The last thing I will say is I want to commend all of our donors, people who are stepping forward, people who are writing grants to help the financial challenge. A person who has supported East St. Louis many ways already did another almost $900,000 gift to help the students there, particularly with technology support. Basler Electric, a local company, is helping by donating equipment, particularly power systems and controllers for our School of Engineering students. And then we've had almost $4 million of grants since our last report. The one I want to mention that I think is most interesting is the Department of Defense grant relating to careers in outer space. And so we're creating these kits to send to K to 12 students so that they can kind of experiment around with designs for spacecraft, et cetera, and think about coming to summer camps. So with that, I don't know if we can get the sound going, whether we can get a speaker close to that, but if you would click on the speaker there, we've got about 25 or 30 seconds of Kim's piece if we can hear it. And with that, I will conclude.
We can hear it. Can the others hear it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you know why? Because they hit audio.
Misty, what I'll do is I'll send the link and people can play that on their own computers and devices at their own leisure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chancellor Pembroke. Now, Dean Cruz.
Okay. That's, okay. Well, I don't think I'm going to be able to share my screen for some reason or another. That's too bad. Huh. Oh, there it is. Do you see that now?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So I'm ready to go now. On the slide, you see Erica Austin, a Kennebrew Award winner. I'm going to get everything in the right place here. And I think you should see a big screen there. Dr. Homer Kennebrew was a surgeon who in 1909 became the first African-American physician to build and operate a private surgical hospital. It was called the New Home Sanitarium. It was in Jacksonville, Illinois, in the SIU region. So every year, the School of Medicine celebrates his life and his courage by holding an annual endowed Kennebrew lecture and forum. We get internationally known visiting professors that come and help us change the false narratives relative to race and racism, and that transforms our organization. But also, several awards are given. And this week, as I said, the Kennebrew Equity Award went to Erica Austin, who during the COVID pandemic has become one of the most powerful collaborators in our community. So Ms. Austin has touched thousands of lives during the pandemic in her work in the Office of Community Care with SIU Migrating Testing Center at Abundant Faith Church in Springfield, with the Madison County Mobile Testing Center in Metro East area. She drove down there many times. Through collaborations with the Center for Rural Health and Social Service Development in Carbondale, same thing. And she heads up our pandemic health workers throughout the state. And so now I'm going to show some comments. Okay, here we go. These are her comments, and I hope you can hear them. Let me know if you can't.
The idea of to whom much is given, much will be required is that we are held responsible for what we have. If we are blessed with talents, wealth, knowledge, time, and the like, it is expected that we use these well to glorify God and benefit others. Receiving the call that I was the recipient of this award, I was overwhelmed with so many emotions. All I could do was cry. I cried because I remembered the life of Dr. Alonzo Kennebrew, who was a trailblazer in his own right. Dr. Kennebrew was the first African-American physician in the United States to build and operate a surgical hospital in Jacksonville, Illinois, because he could not obtain medical privileges at area hospitals. I thought about all the obstacles that he had to face, not only because he was a Black man, but because he was doing what was right and what he was required to do. Imagine, if you will, a little girl who has speech and reading problems and who teachers wanted to put into special education because she didn't fit the mold or expectations of what they wanted. Neither did the teachers want to work with her to see if she even had a chance. Instead, they wrote her off and labeled her as incompetent. To them, she was different, just like the individuals that Dr. Kennebrew built the hospitals for. That little girl was me. Receiving this award is confirmation that I am on the right path and that I have been given much and now I'm required to share with others who may be perceived or looked at different because of the views society has placed on them. Diversity and inclusion is near and dear to my heart because I understand what it's like to feel different and not to be included. I recognize what it looks like to be told that you are not smart enough, that you will not succeed in education and overlooked because my speech was not as clear. Diversity and inclusion is not just about race, it's about bringing people to the table who do not look or speak like the majority. This award embodies the importance of diversity. Receiving this award is an honor, and I'm deeply humbled to have a seat at the table with many legends who have received this award. However, I cannot take all the credit for where I am today. There have been many people in my life to help me understand and live the motto, to whom much is given, much is required. I stand on the backs and shoulders of many people who have in their own right paved the way for me to be here. My mother, a single parent mother, who stood her ground and told the people at the school that no, her child was not going into special education. When society tried to put labels on me, she taught me never to let others diminish my light and told me it was okay to be different as well as to beat to my own drum. To Doris Chamber, my first mentor, who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Ms. Chambers taught me how to use my voice to make a difference and never let anyone take that from me because I had so much to offer. To all the people at SIU School of Medicine who have taken me under their wing since I've been at SIU, who have provided the tools, resources, and even a platform for me to serve my community in a variety of ways. To my family, sorority sisters, friends, youth, and communities I serve, Thank you for keeping me grounded, supporting, and encouraging me to keep going and starting from the heart. I was given much, and I'm required to give back in a way that helps our community flourish and ensure that my community has the resources they need to not only thrive, but to survive. I will continue to fight for equity, as everyone not only deserves a shoe, but a shoe that fits. Thank you.
So the words and actions of Erica Austin embody all of what SIU is about: how we educate, how we serve, how we include, how we are committed to a holistic system of healthcare that's effective and efficient, enjoyable, and equitable. And as you can see on this slide, throughout the pandemic, the School of Medicine response has been broad and consistent throughout the state, and it's included medical care for the patients who are most ill, new methods of access for those who need care the most, development of laboratories, scientific discoveries to improve care, testing centers that move around, contact tracing, callback results, deployment of pandemic healthcare workers, and now vaccinations. So in all the SIU areas, we're eagerly awaiting the supply of vaccines we need. We're on the short side, and we stand prepared to work with our partners to vaccinate people more quickly. So that's my report. Thank you so much.
Any questions of Dr. Cruz? Okay, regular board meetings, 30 minutes will be reserved to receive comments or questions from members of the public and employees of the university. Speakers' comments or questions should not exceed 5 minutes. Persons wishing to speak shall contact the executive secretary of the board. The executive secretary of the board shall maintain a roster of those seeking to speak and shall call the speakers in order. Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers today?
We have one speaker, Marcus Odom.
Dr. Odom.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, the board and the chancellors and the deans for giving me this opportunity. I always enjoy coming to your board meetings and I always enjoy having the opportunity to speak to you about some things that I think need to be shared. I'll start off by saying that I had the pleasure of being involved with Chancellor Lane in his listening and learning tour with our faculty on our campus. Chancellor Lane has completed well over 60 of these Zoom meetings, listening and learning tour meetings. We have about 25 of those set up with faculty, and we've completed many of those already. We still have some to go, which will be finishing up at the end of March. But it's been a great opportunity to hear from our faculty and to hear them speak freely and the appreciation they have shown that this is happening and that Chancellor Lane took this opportunity is something I can't express enough. And so I want to thank him for doing this and allowing our faculty to share. And in hearing our faculty share, they're excited about the future of SIU. And they're excited about the opportunities that we have for students, the outreach that we're going to are in process of increasing for the accessibility of our university. They're excited about the Salute Commitment scholarships for both incoming freshmen and transfer students that we're offering. The faculty are getting more involved, and that's been one of my push this year for the faculty is to get them more involved, to try to interact with them as much as possible and get them to interact and speak their voice and speak it more in a positive manner about what's going on. They're getting involved in recruiting. They're making phone calls to students, and we're so excited about the enrollment task force that is working hard to increase our enrollment. You saw the increases we had in the fall, and we're expecting greater increases this coming fall, and our numbers right now are showing that. And we're excited about that, and the faculty are wanting to be involved in making sure that we yield those numbers that we want to yield. And I'm excited that the faculty are stepping up to do that. I can also tell you that they are getting toward the end of our reorganization, and they're ready. They're ready to start off with the new chapter in SIU Sees Life. We're excited about some of the changes, some of the synergies that are already developing from the reorganization. And we're really excited about moving forward with these new units, these new schools, and seeing some of the things that we're able to do as we move forward. I can tell you that they're excited about getting back in the classroom too. And one thing that is a little concerning is that with the CDC's having in their guidelines that university faculty would be included in the round of vaccination that's going on now, and our state choosing to not have the faculty in that grouping is of concern. We don't want our parents to think that we're not going to be prepared in the fall to go back to live classrooms when some of the states around us, their faculty are already being vaccinated and they're able to say their faculty will be there. We appreciate the presidents of the university that sent the letter to the governor. We appreciate the other educational institutes that have sent letters to the governor. We encourage the board of trustees to reach out to our governor and others. We think the faculty should be involved in this round of vaccines so that we can make sure that we are back in the classroom for our students as soon as possible. And again, I want to thank you for this opportunity and to tell you that the faculty are excited and we are looking forward to the future of SIUC as we move forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oldham. Our next item is a call for the omnibus motion. The trustees have had approximately 10 days to study the items on the agenda. A certain number of items are routine or self-explanatory, so as to save time, we act upon them in one motion and vote. Missy, is there any items that need to be pulled from the?
Yes, I believe we should vote separately on items F and G.
F and G. Okay, is there a motion to approve board items H through M?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We're now going to call for a roll call on the omnibus motion. This be H through M, is that correct?
That's right. Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yeah.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick,
Yes.
Okay, I declare the motion, omnibus motion has been passed. Will be a separate roll call on board item F, report of purchase orders and contracts for October, November, and December 2020. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on item F.
Curtis,
Yes.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick,
I recuse.
Okay, I declare the motion is passed. Board item G is report of purchase orders and contracts, October, November, December 2020 SIUE. Do I have a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're going to ask now for a roll call vote on item G.
Curtis,
Ed Curtis?
He's on mute.
Oh, okay.
Just continue with.
Okay.
Come back to him.
Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick,
I recuse.
Go back to Curtis now.
and Mr. Curtis has sent me a note. His sound has dropped him again. He
Okay.
can't hear us.
How about a thumbs up?
All right.
All right.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, I declare the motion is passed. That concludes the business for the Board of Trustees today. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the board is planned to be held April 29th, 2021 at SIU here in Carbondale. Again, it will all depend upon the status of the virus and the governor's declarations regarding whether we can and cannot have meetings by Zoom if things have not opened up sufficiently enough. A news conference will be held immediately after conclusion of this meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. It's been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Whittington, please call the roll.
Curtis? All right, yes. Gear,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Graham,
Yes.
Hightower,
Yes.
Sharma,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Tedrick.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. Everyone, please, thank you for your participation today and stay safe and mask up. Have a good day.
So, Mr. Chairman, it looks like we have Jen Fuller and Damien. And I believe Isaac might have been here a little bit earlier. He may be logging back on. Jen, would you like to start us out?
I actually have just one question. Chair Gilbert, as I understand it, your term on the board expired last month. Is it safe to say that you are seeking another term from the governor, another appointment?
Well, my term has expired and I have not heard anything from the governor's office. I am ready, willing, and able to continue to serve on the Board of Trustees. We have a wonderful board. We've all worked together well, and the SIU system is running well with under a leadership of President Mahoney and his leadership team. But of course, it's up to the governor. And again, I have not had any contact with. They have not had any contact with me. I assume right now they have other things on their agenda, a little more important than board appointments. But I think I have a 60-day window right now that I can continue to serve and be a voting member of the board. And I do expect hopefully some a word before then.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions from any other press?
I had just one question, actually, in regard to next semester planning for as many face-to-face classes as possible. What is this kind of looking like? Because I know it was kind of briefly mentioned as we're trying to move back to as much normalcy as possible. And I was just kind of wondering what exactly this looked like.
Who's that directed to?
Whoever would like to answer.
Yeah, probably either the chancellor, I don't know, Chancellor Lane, you want to start?
Yeah, I can, Damien. Just really to echo what the president mentioned in his report. The idea is that obviously pandemic and everything that is hopefully in a much better position in a couple of months, but trying to get back to where we were before the pandemic. And just to highlight that we were probably at about 80 or some odd % of our courses face-to-face, so not 100%. We still had some online courses, some hybrid courses. And so if we could get back close to where we were before the pandemic hit, that would be ideal. But we're monitoring that. We'll be monitoring that all the way through the spring semester and through the summer. So we have here at SIUC, we've got really a plan A and a plan B schedule. So plan A is really what would look like it did before the pandemic, and plan B would be very close to what we have right now if things for some reason didn't get any better. So hopefully that answers your question, Damien.
Thank you.
Chancellor Pembroke, did you want to add anything or?
Sure, thank you. we're planning on the majority of the courses that were on ground in fall of 19 to be on ground in fall of 21. We are still planning on the social distancing, which means that the classes, we will have more classes, more sections, and people will still be further apart. That is our approach. We have a number of asynchronous online classes that existed before COVID and will continue to exist. So I would say that maybe the biggest change will be that the concept of the hybrid class, some on ground, some online, I think that was developed in the COVID era, and I think that we'll see more of that in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much for participating and we'll, as I said earlier, mask up and